Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and thank you, Minister, for taking this question, because I do understand that it doesn't fall solely into your department, and I do want to say that I really appreciate that from the outset. So it's in relation to concerning a child's guardianship status, that their rights are ensured from the perspective of the best interest of the child, and if you will make a statement on the matter. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy. The issue of guardianship is a matter for the courts in the first instance under the Guardianship of Infants Act of 1964. However, I have a continuing interest in ensuring the legal and practical arrangements for the welfare of children are well-founded and appropriately applied at all times. As Minister in this department, I have no formal or defined role in the determination of cases where there is a legal issue about the guardianship of a child. That is and must be a matter for the courts. In addition, however, there are guardianship matters to be considered relating to children in the care of TUSLA. Children are received into TUSLA's care either through a voluntary agreement or by way of a care order issued by the courts, each of which are provided for under the Child Care Act of 1991. My responsibilities in this area relate to care orders under the Child Care Act 1991 rather than to the Guardianship of Infants Act, which is under the aegis of the courts and the Minister for Justice. In terms of the actions under the remit of the Minister and Department for Justice, under Section 6C of the Guardianship of Infants Act 1964, a person can apply to court to be appointed as a child's guardian if he or she is married to or in a civil partnership with the child's parent or has cohabited with the child's parent for over 3 years, and if the person has shared responsibility for the child's day-to-day care for more than 2 years. As issues relating to surrogacy concern areas of law that intersect across the remits of several government departments, the Minister for Health, the Minister for Justice, the Attorney-General and I are continuing to work together on these matters, and the provisions of Section 6 of the Guardianship of Infants Act are currently being examined in that context. As the three ministers, we've met now on 3 occasions on this specific issue, and we've also met with the Attorney-General on 1 occasion as well. So work is ongoing among our officials on how to address the relevant and very complex legal issues in a matter that vindicates the rights of the child.
Thank you. Thanks, Minister. Yes, surrogacy, I suppose, was the reason behind me raising this. And as I said, I do understand there's other ministers involved, but I suppose from a children's rights point of view, and also as well to be able to just raise this issue in the Chamber, particularly as the Health Department is so limited with questions at the moment due to the cyber attack, I think it's important that we really do keep it on the agenda. And the key issues really are, I suppose, the Dr. Conor O'Mahony's report. He did an excellent report on this, and it's really important that the recommendations in that report are looked at. You know, he really has some excellent recommendations, and also I think just Dr. O'Mahony in general is really well placed to be looking at this issue. I know as well that there are difficulties around international surrogacy in the proposed bill. This isn't actually accounted for, and international surrogacy is, you know, it's a big part of it, and we have to all be very honest about that, and it's important that that is considered. And I also know that families are really concerned about retrospection that exists in families, that it's not a case that maybe if a bill is passed, you know, here in 2021, is it just going to be from this year going forward, or will it take other families in? I'll come back in my supplementary minute again. Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy. Maybe just to address some of the matters that do, and I should say these do fall within the remit of the Department of Health, but the drafting of a bill on assisted human reproduction and associated research was based on the published general scheme of the Assisted Human Reproduction Bill, which was published in the last Dáil, and work on that, drafting on that, is ongoing by officials in the Department of Health, and it's a commitment in the programme for government that that legislation would be passed. The legislation is comprehensive. It encompasses the regulation for the first time in Ireland of a range of practices, including domestic, altruistic surrogacy. The provisions related to surrogacy are dealt with in Part 6 of the bill. The bill sets out a court-based mechanism through which the parentage of a child born through surrogacy may be transferred from the surrogate and her husband, if applicable, to the intended parent. As the Deputy stated, it doesn't deal with commercial surrogacy on an international basis, and as the Deputy stated, Dr. O'Mahony has brought forward a report with recommendations in that regard, and that report is also being examined by the three ministers and by the Attorney-General.
Thanks very much, Minister. I'm really glad to hear that, and I think it'll be welcome news for families who have gone through surrogacy or who are facing surrogacy in the near future. And it is going to be something, I suppose, and it's welcome that it's there as an option as well. And I'm sure it will be something that we will see a lot more of in the near future. So just in relation to that report, and I do think as well it's important, and I know that I think you've met with some of the families and some of the advocacy groups, but I know that certainly they would be open to meeting with yourself, with Minister Donnelly, with any minister that they need to meet with, and they really kind of get their story across really well. And I just want to commend them for all of their work. I want to also just really briefly mention issues around obviously parental leave and maternity benefit and all those areas that probably some of us take for granted, that they're so important as well. And I suppose I'm glad to hear the comments that you've made so far, and I do appreciate, as I said, I know it's not only your area, but I suppose I think the crux of it really is Dr. O'Mahony's report. Thanks, Chair. Or Laskin Caller.
Thanks, Deputy. Well, look, this is an issue that does spread across a number of departments. I think that's why it's important that the three ministers are working together and are meeting regularly together, and we're hoping to meet again in the near future to continue our discussions. We're getting support from the Attorney-General on the issue. I have met with some of the groups, and I know there's an alliance formed in this particular area, and I think it is important that for children who are here in Ireland, conceived through surrogacy, deeply loved by their parents, it is important that provision is made for them. Obviously, in all this, when a child is conceived as surrogacy, there are a number of individuals, a number of adults involved, and it is important, and I think we know from our experience in the area of adoption, it is important that a child has full access to knowledge about all parties who are involved. And I think that from my department, that's one of the points that I'll be bringing to the discussion on this legislation, that a child has to know all parties involved in their conception.
Meal market.